2:30.
Do you guys know where you find bookmarks? Like, if you bookmark something? Hey Jeff, do you know if you bookmark something where to find it?
Hey, that's no problem. I just don't get the asphalt. Bless you. I got it. Yeah, if you look at it on the zip files, nobody's in the water in the It's down since the last time. It's the same.
It's a new bottle.
Oh, it's a new bottle. No, she keeps the same bottle. Yeah, in fact, they're getting
But I'm in the document.
So Ben is asking me to call me. What'd you tell him? The guy. He said no, it's a call. What's he for?
Oh, really?
First dumpster. That's right. That one you could have made the meeting.
Yeah.
What was that one?
Right, that's why I was here. No, it was bookmark on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, today.
I changed because I thought you guys looking at the.
All right, now I lost today.
Oh. Ready? Go.
Oh, honestly.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Monday, August 6, 2018 City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Canyon.
Here.
Alderman Devine.
Here.
Alderman Havoc.
Here.
Alderman Curry.
Here.
Alderman Schaefer.
Here.
Alderman Glab.
Here.
Alderman Santee.
Here.
Mayor Jett.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any member of the public wishing to address the council as it pertains to the consent agenda or unrelated items on this agenda? Can you please step up to the podium? State your name and address for public record.
Good evening. Lori Geske from Geske & Sons Asphalt. I'm here to comment on the Meyer pit agreement. It's come to my attention this is, I'm not involved. I'm a customer of Meyer. My family's been in business in McHenry County since my grandfather was alive and I was 2. At that time, there were a lot of gravel pits in McHenry County, and there was a lot of sources for material. Rumor had it they used to just dig anywhere. Now, with all the different agencies that regulate, it's become really difficult to operate in this county because the resources are not there. Vulcan material is now Three Oaks Recreation. The Algonquin pits are tapping out, and as a material producer, we have an asphalt plant at 14 and 31 in Crystal Lake and have since 1980. Meyer West Pit is our last local resource for material. If Meyer isn't able to supply the local businesses in our industry with material, the impact will be swift and high on all of the local businesses that are in this industry. It'll be devastating for us. Our business personally will be devastated. We will have to go to Rockford, Antioch, Elgin to supply the city of McHenry, Crystal Lake, all of our local McHenry County businesses with asphalt will have to come from these other out-of-county suppliers. So I don't want to take up too much time, I could go on and on, but respite is needed. I know they've supplied jobs. The pit has been there since after World War II, from what I understand, from what my father has told me. So I know they've moved and they've changed ownership and they've continued to expand, but this city was built with the material from West Pitt, as is most every other business here. The cement, the asphalt is all come from right here. So by not recognizing them as a foundational business for the city of McHenry is a mistake. And the impact to the local businesses, old businesses, that have established themselves here relying on local resources will be devastating. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and state my opinion about Meyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Is there anyone else wishing? Sir, please step to the podium, state your name and address for public record, please.
Hi, my name is Rick Quinn, and I have a business at 5817 Hill Street. It's 2 acres that actually is adjacent to the Meyer Material property on the east side. I operate a small trucking company called Galaxy CW. We've had that company working out of the McHenry gravel pit since I believe it was 1979, was when we started out of McHenry. The reason my business is located here is because of the natural resource and because of that pit. And I'm a local employer. I have 10 people that work for me, with me every day. About half of them are City of McHenry residents. The other probably 35 or 40% of them are McHenry area residents. And they're all good jobs. They all are union Teamsters. They've raised their families. They have pensions. We've been part of the community, try to do it right, and have been here for decades. The reason I'm here today, though, is not just about economics, because where I do work occasionally for the pit, I also supply a lot of material to other producers like Ms. Geske, that buy it and I truck it around the Chicago area. I also am a consumer of the aggregate. I probably in the last 5-6 years have bought well over $1 million worth of aggregate out of that pit myself and resold it. I'm a point of sales tax payer, so I pay the sales tax where I actually buy the material at. But the biggest reason I'm here tonight is because the men that I work for every day have been reading this in the paper, and they're very concerned about the future of the gravel pit and about their jobs. And I'm also representative of a lot of local area businesses that little commercial engine on the west end of your town all supports us. When I need hardware store, I go to Ace Hardware. We purchase fuel in town, we purchase gas in town, we use the local auto parts stores. That is a very strong commercial entity within your city. And as you consider your issues with the Meyer Material ownership now, I ask you to please remember the people, not just the people who work for the pit, but the hundreds and hundreds of people that benefit from that commercial engine, the people that have been here, paid taxes, put their kids through school, all on that industry that exists on the west side of town. And I just ask you to please consider that when you consider everything else, because your decision would gravely affect the people that I work with every day. And there's a lot of people like me that aren't here, whether it's the bakery or you understand the economics better than I do, but that brings a lot of people in this town that utilize this town and are very happy to be in this city. And we want to stay here. And if that pit were to close, I would almost guarantee you that a very large contingent of people would relocate to a different area that was better geographically for their business. And thank you very much. I don't want to take any more of your time. I know it's not on your agenda tonight, but please remember the people also when you guys make your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Last chance. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any council members wanting to pull any items for separate consideration? Alderman Gleb?
B.
B as in boy?
B as in boy.
Alderman Curry?
E as in echo and L.
Anyone else? Okay. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve consent agenda items 5A, C, D, F through K, M through O. Alderman Condon?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Schaefer?
Second.
Discussion on these items. Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, all I want to do is state, and I know it wasn't even discussed as far as when you look at the fees, I still find it very difficult to stomach the fact that it costs us $12 for a city sticker, but yet it's only a $25 fine if you get caught. There's people out there that haven't bought them in 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even longer. They're willing to gamble because they're only paying double on a fine. I think that should be looked at in the future. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Alderman Condon?
Just on page 95, on the July 31st minutes, just because at the top it lists that I was absent, just if we could include in there that I did arrive around 7:50, because it shows that I was present for some of the votes after that, but just for clarification.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon,
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Mahevin,
Yes.
Alderman Curry,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The item that was pulled by Alderman Glab, 5B, ordinance amending Chapter 13 Motor Vehicles, Article 2, Sections 13-201 regarding the establishment of speed limits of the City of McHenry Municipal Code. Can I get a motion on this item? Alderman Curry?
I'll move to approve the item.
Second? Alderman Santee?
I will second the motion.
Discussion on this item. Alderman Glab?
Yeah, I'm the one that pulled it. Basically, what I want to talk about is this Crystal Lake Road. It basically goes from, what is it, 35 to 50? Does it not when you're going south, when you hit the Bull Valley?
Crystal Lake Road?
I'm sorry?
Crystal Lake Road?
Crystal Lake Road, yeah.
I believe it's 45 and then it goes to 50, but I'd have to drive out there to look.
I don't think there's a 45 there.
I don't know.
It just jumps to 50.
Yeah, the 50 would, the
And-
50 should be after our city limits, I believe, which is, you know,
Except-
south of Bull Valley.
Except for the fact that south of Bull Valley is in the city.
About a half a mile, yes.
Right,
Just to the end of the
that's not
subdivision.
what our ordinance specifically states here. It states up to Bull Valley Road, and I just think we need a better clarification on that. And the problem winds up is, and again, I don't think we're gonna be able to hammer this out right now, but basically, by statute, you can't jump more than 10 miles an hour.
You're not
The
supposed
difference.
Well,
And
that's
we're
no
jumping
fun.
15, and it has been like that since before I was a council member. That's why there's never been a speed limit sign all the way as close as Bull Valley Road.
When we examined this, when we were looking at Green Street, we did recognize that there are a lot of discrepancies in certain sections of this ordinance as well. We just needed to take that back to the Public Works Committee at a later date to address those as well.
All I would ask is that we take it back, you know, to look at it again. When these ordinances were created, we didn't annex the property where the Brunette developments are along the Bull Valley, for down Crystal Lake Road, Bull Valley there. So
Absolutely.
I just figured it needed to be brought up to attention, the fact that we need to update this completely probably as far as speed limits on the streets, and maybe Public Works in the future needs to hammer it out. Not that I was against what was being proposed on Green Street, it was more concerns about other issues there that are kind of missed. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Schaper,
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik,
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item was pulled by Alderman Curry, 5E. There's a temporary license agreement between the city of McHenry and Dine McHenry Commons LLC and the use of an area commonly known as 2034 and 2038 Richmond Road, McHenry, Illinois for JC's Haunted House. I'm looking for a motion on this item. Alderman Schaper?
Make that motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Devine? Any discussion or comments on this item? Alderman Curry?
Yeah, the reason I pulled it is I guess I'm a little concerned or questioning why the city is entering into a lease agreement and presumably accepting some liability there in case the worst would happen. When, as I understood this, the J.C.'s are basically paying the entire cost of the lease, plus they're paying the entire cost of the insurance, which is required by the lessor. And I guess I'm just not quite sure why the city's in the middle of it.
We met with the lessor. We have a relationship with them. They have a good relationship with us. They give us a reduced rate if they could enter a lease with the J.C.'s. They would have to do more. It would have taken a longer time. They would have to vet them out more. It was just in a simpler process to enter a relationship or a lease with us. It was easier. We will require a certificate of insurance, the same as is required in the lease from the J.C.'s as is required from us in the lease. So
Well,
it was
right.
just,
And I read
logistically it
that.
was easier.
I read that they were gonna, basically provide the insurance and et cetera, but you know how that goes. I mean, insurance only goes so far sometimes, and if you were to have a really bad situation that came up, the city then becomes, as I read this, the city then becomes the liable party. We could look for the attorney to comment on that, but I believe if we end up being liable in the end.
Correct.
That is correct, right? So I guess I'm not sure why the city, again, is inserting themselves in between that. I mean, I understand it was easier, I get that, but.
It's not, I'm not saying let the city do it just because it's easier. I'm just saying we were trying to facilitate a process and we had a pre-existing relationship. We were trying to facilitate, this is a fundraiser for the J.C.'s. We had a relationship with the lessor. They gave us a decent rate. So we were trying just to broker a relationship. We facilitated the process. That's what we did.
Alderman Condon?
Just as a point of history, they used to hold their event on our property
Right.
in the barn. So we had that liability in the past as well. And they have been, the J.C.'s and the city have been a great partner together. That's what funds and provides, those two entities together fund and provide the fireworks each year. So I think they are as careful and cautious as we would be in stewards of taking care of members of the community. I don't have any problem with this. They want safety as much as we do. Of course, accidents do happen, of course. But wow, if we didn't do anything that could prevent any harm, I mean, nobody would walk out of their house. So I just think this is a great partnership, and I'm happy to be a part of it and make it easier for them.
Thank you. Alderman Santee?
Was there a different rate structure they were proposing to the J.C.'s as compared to us if we were doing a lease with them?
No, I'm saying if you're just a commercial tenant,
Yeah.
they would probably charge more.
They would.
And that was the discussion we had with them, that they
Right.
would. This was a favor.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was a favor. We have a great relationship, well, I should say Doug, because he's known him a lot longer, but
Mhm.
in Vegas, we do meet with them, quite often, and, that's when we kinda talked to them and tried to bridge the gap for the JCs to help them, but also to get that rate down, significantly, but also we worked with them to make sure the approval process throughout all the rest of the stores as well. We're okay with it, so. Alderman Schaefer?
Do we, Ross, does your department, will they be involved to do a final look through?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
I'm confident in that then too as well.
Yeah, I mean, I follow everybody, I understand, it's definitely not, I mean, we have to do this at our property, we definitely have to do it on our property. It is unique what you're presenting here, in regards to, you know, this, we're being a little, it's, I don't know.
Partnership.
Partnership, third party to a piece of property that, you know, we're gonna have some potential liability, even though it's not our land.
I mean, we just didn't have many alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I will support this tonight, but I do feel that, just as Alderman Curry said, that really, the city shouldn't be getting involved in this. I mean, this is between that entity and the landlords. And yes, if we try to help as far as deliberate a fair value as far as what they're paying for rent, that's fine. But to get us in the middle of it, I don't, you know, legally, I don't know about that. You know, granted, that's a not-for-profit organization, but what are we gonna do next? Are we going to have somebody that wants to come in and wants a certain price on a lease on a certain property, and then they're gonna ask the city to get it involved in the middle of it? I mean, you know, where do we end? Where do we stop? And I just feel to some extent that we really, again, as far as a regular policy, we shouldn't be getting involved in the middle of things like this. So again, I agree with Alderman Curry, but I will support this year. That's all.
Any other discussion or comments? Alderman Curry?
Yeah, just one final comment. I support I used to be a member of the GC, so it's not like, you know, they're a great organization. In fact, you know, they're a really great organization. But I just, and you know, partnerships are one thing. I have no problems with us inserting ourselves in and getting a better deal if we can help that way. I just have a problem with us signing a lease for something that we don't control. We control our own property, and as Alderman Sandy said, we don't really have a choice in that case. If we want to do it on our property, that's fine. We control that. We don't have a choice. We take the liability there. This is a separate. This is a whole another deal here where we're accepting. I mean, we're going to be there every day. We're going to have our people there to make sure that things are fine. I mean, every day, because that's really, we're accepting the liability. So that's where I kind of draw the line there. Is I have no problem. I would probably even support. Okay, they can't get as good a lease deal, but it's a nonprofit. Maybe we make up the difference. I'd even go there, you know, then before I, you know, look at signing a lease and taking on the liability. That's just my view.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman McHenry?
No.
Alderman Curry?
No.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Sandy?
No.
4-3? No. 4-3, yes.
That is passed. The next item on the agenda was pulled by Alderman Curry as well, item 5L. I'm looking for a motion for that item as presented. Alderman Condon?
I will make that motion with the correction on page 74. It was the Community Development Committee, not the Public Works.
Second? Alderman Schaefer?
Second.
Discussion on this item. Alderman Curry?
Yeah, I pulled it, the one item I really need to pull it for, I guess, but it's a minor item, on page 7, and maybe I don't remember this correctly, but the third paragraph down, it talks about the EP granting additional 2 wall signs 15 feet in height. I don't think the wall signs were 15 feet in height. I think it was just the 3-sided sign. So that's a bit of a typo. Page 10, which is where the discussion is on the referendum. You know, I guess I'm just taking a little bit of an issue with it. There's a lot of time spent in minutes, and I know it's really hard to do minutes and get them, you know, where you get the flavor for what happened. But there's a lot going on in the minutes about, you know, whether it was binding or not, and we did have that certain discussion, but it just seems like there's less said about some of the other issues. We had a gentleman that spoke, and he is mentioned here about, you know, grants and partnerships, and it just seems like it, and I know I personally made some comments, and as did others about that. I just think it was given a little bit of maybe less emphasis than what it deserved. And I realize that minutes are, you know, technically all you really have to do is show what happened. But so anyway, I wanted to make that comment. But while we're on that subject, you know, we got an email over the weekend, basically 11 days after we approved this, and talking about how staff had talked to a gentleman in Las Vegas, which was what, May? Is that when the Las Vegas trip was?
Yep.
May. So in May, there was a discussion in Las Vegas with a gentleman about partnerships, the EB5, sorry. And at any rate, different ways of funding some of these projects, and yet, and in Director Martin's memo, which I reread just before the meeting, it talks about that and public-private partnerships were discussed. And I know that it was fleshed out more recently, because I spoke a little bit before the meeting with them, but I guess my issue is we talked about this several times in conjunction with the referendum. It was brought up several times, and yet at no time was council made aware that there was a discussion going on with any individuals about public-private partnerships, and I just feel like it was pertinent information that we were not made aware of. Whether that was just an oversight or what, I don't know, but it's concerning to me that we, in full disclosure, I voted against the referendum, and I know that five others voted for it. But anytime we discuss an item and we don't have full information in front of us, I have a concern. And I think all council members should have a concern with that. Because there apparently were discussions going on. And here 11 days later, we have a gentleman scheduled to speak with us at our next meeting about this very subject. And I realize a lot more may have went on in the past couple of weeks, but still, it was, the impression was given that we hadn't looked into it at all. In fact, I asked that as a direct question and was told that it had not been looked into. So my concern is that we should all be alarmed that happens, whether you're for or against it. And I'm sure maybe that doesn't change anybody's thought as to whether it should go forward or not. But I think it should be brought back. And the only one that can do that is a prevailing number, one of the prevailing numbers, prevailing votes, which would be either Alderman Santee, Schaefer, Mahevic, Devine, or Condon. I can't do it because I voted against it, and neither can Alderman Glad. But I really think at some point this should be reconsidered. We're going to talk about it on August 20th with this gentleman in more detail, and yet we're going to let this stand. If we don't do that, we would let the referendum stand to basically put that question to the taxpayers and put that burden on the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Alderman Schaefer?
Just for clarification too, what the P3 or the EB5 funding is not in reference to just that recreation center, correct? It's for all other
Yeah.
projects that we have discussed in the past.
Correct, so I'll give a little bit of insight. When we met with them in Vegas, the rec center wasn't even brought up. That was not even, it was actually a property that is in the city, obviously, that we're looking to develop. And we didn't even know who these people were. So to give them any, any kind of credit, I mean, I wasn't gonna come out and say, hey, this is what we're looking to do, but and then they can't even come up with anything. So we just met with them last week. What day was that? Middle of the week or so. And while discussing other properties, I said, hey, while we're talking, we are looking at doing a referendum. What kind of partnerships do you get involved with that? Because obviously my goal, or all of our goal, is to save any amount of money or any kind of partnerships. Sometimes you just don't know who you're getting involved with. So last week, Doug contacted a few people that he's done partnerships with. Great feedback, actually excellent feedback, right, Doug? So at this point, we're discussing with them on the 20th. It'll come here for a discussion item, and at that point, we see what they can do. They more do the big profitable operations, entertainment facilities and stuff like that. But we did mention it to them. We wanted to make sure that you were aware of it right after we discussed it. So yes, we weren't hiding anything like others think we do all the time, but we brought it up to everyone's attention as soon as we got the correct information on who the person is before we get this information out. Alderman Glab?
Yeah, you said August 20th you're coming back?
Yes, August 20th, right? Discussion?
Isn't that the last date that anything can be changed as far as the county, as far as referendums or anything on the ballot?
It is. It is.
So, I mean, whatever they bring forward, there's really no reason to discuss the referendum, because the referendum is already going to be locked solid on the ballot by the time we sit down at council and discuss it.
Is that correct, Bill?
That is correct. Close business, August 20th.
Is the deadline the 20th or is it 31st? I don't know.
August 20th.
Oh, August 20th, okay.
For the question.
Correct.
Correct.
On the ballot, yeah.
Alderman Condon?
Okay, first of all, I apologize. That correction that I stated earlier was on the July 10th, not the 23rd. So I apologize about that. So do I have to amend the motion?
I think it's corrected just now.
Okay, so we're good on that. Okay, thank you.
Change the date on the whole.
The other part I wanted to just mention about the referendum, as I stated that night when we had that vote, in the past, not this time to my knowledge, but in the past when we had considered the original recreation center, we did explore partnerships and none of them were feasible. Now, that doesn't mean something new couldn't come up. I'm not saying that. I just want to say as a matter of history that the city has in fact in the past looked into partnerships and there was a whole lot of issues that were a problem with that. That said, even if a partner, my understanding is that we could still, with the referendum going forward, enter into a partnership at any point in time and reduce the bond.
Absolutely.
And so, to me, there's no reason to readdress the issue of the referendum when it's already, we have the ability to take care of that solution. I hope we do find a partnership. I'm all for that. So, and again, my support of going to referendum is I want to know what the community, if the majority of the community who vote, and I hope more people vote than don't, that we get their input. It's not going to have an impact on me personally, other than my taxes, but I want to know what our community says. And I will certainly work with our staff in continuing to look for partnerships, but in my opinion, it's not relevant to putting the referendum forward.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to state for the record that the main reason why I voted against the referendum is because I sat here. In fact, I was the one that brought up the referendum in the first place years back, that we had the $4.2 million sitting there and that we needed to get started with something. However, when we had the discussions of the phases and everything else, there are 4 aldermen that are sitting at this table that all agreed that the fact that we wanted to create the rec center and we wanted to move forward without impacting the taxpayers. And that's why I voted against it.
Any other discussion? Alderman Curry?
Well, just to clarify, we did not, as far as I know, when I asked that question, look at P3 public-private partnerships. We looked at other things like, for example, can we get a YMCA to come to town or things like that? And that's what Director Hobson had confirmed at the last meeting, and that's correct. So we did not look at any of these type of fundings, even though it's been brought up. I personally brought up P3s in October, and it's been brought up several times since. And maybe it's just unfortunate timing, but it's, you know, here we are. We move forward with a referendum through council to put it on a ballot, and 11 days later we now have more information. It's just unfortunate timing, but that just doesn't feel right. So just want to make those comments. Back to the minutes, which is what's really on the table. I would just, it was more of a comment to about the stress that is in the minutes about this particular issue. Other than that, I don't kind of vote against the minutes. I just wanted to bring out those points.
Any other discussion or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Schaper?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Sant?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The next item on the agenda is 6A. Let's discuss item 6A as presented. David, can you please present this item?
So everyone knows the city's dealing with this raffle that the VFW is conducting, and it's increasing in value, so the city needs to deal with that issue. And what the police department, the city staff, and myself, I guess, for what it's worth, are recommending is that we go to $6 million as the limit of what the player would receive before taxes, and the VFW would pay to that person. So that would mean subtracting out what the VFW keeps, what the VFW keeps for purposes of the next pot, and taxes that the individual or individuals, if there's more than one, would have to pay. So the way we did this is, if you look at those 4 letters that are underneath prizes there, it reads exactly the way the statute does, but the statute, seems to us, isn't quite clear enough. So what we did was we added a sentence of clarity after the statutory provision, after the $6 million in the first sentence, $6 million in the second. Yeah, we added that second sentence that defines what the value of the prize is in relation to being the player or players. So that's, we're suggesting that clarification and the increase to $6 million. The chief or the VFW can give you a better opinion about when that number might be reached if cards are played and not won, and then what the effect is at the next game. Yeah, no, if someone were to win tomorrow, then what the receipt of the proceeds from the VFW are if they were to apply it to the next game, how long that would take in order to reach its value of $6 million. I don't really know, but they might be a better way to give you a prognosis on that. We're thinking less than 365 days, which is why D is set. It sets a limit of 365. I think that's way out there, but it should take something less than a year. Even though we've been at this for more than a year now, it's because it started at 0. We'll no longer start at 0. We'll start at a very large number, which will make it advance to 6 much quicker. So, any questions?
Alderman Glenn?
Do we know why we put a limit on, or why there was a limit put on gambling in the first place? What the intent was?
The legislative intent?
Well, when the city of McHenry
Well,
did.
we're putting a limit on because the state requires us to put a limit on.
Okay,
And
when
I
did
don't
that
believe
start?
home rule trumps that.
Okay, when did that start?
The limit?
Yeah. Was it with Queen of Hearts, or did we?
No, there's always been a limit, but it was, if you look in most city codes throughout Illinois, it's usually $15,000. And I think ours was in that range.
Yeah. I just tend to wonder why the limit was in the first place, and, because, I mean, we've addressed this how many times this year already, 3, 4?
Right,
Yeah.
it's to keep up.
Yeah, I know.
If we don't set a limit.
Well, don't worry about it. I had a dream last night,
Mhm.
and you know who's winning it tomorrow night, so, no, put your hand up. No, what concerns me more than anything else is I hope that somebody does win it tomorrow night, because, it's getting a little crazy out there. I mean, last week, I guess there were, what, 600 people sitting in lawn chairs out in the front? They couldn't even get in the building. I mean, and as this thing builds, I mean, there's people from Indiana coming, and Wisconsin, and other states. There's people that live out of state that know somebody that lives here, and calling them and having them place bets for them and everything. I mean, it's become a very, very advertised promotion, and you know, when's enough to where it starts impacting us, you know, as far as the city level. So that's my only concerns. You know, if somebody wins $1.5 million take home, or $6 million take home, or if they win $25 million, I'm sure Mayor Jett will think of some investments they can do in the city. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, I just worry again if it gets too big for too long a time, just how much of an impact that the city has to share. That's my only concern.
The city is having an impact, not a negative one, but there's an impact. In fact, since the last adoption of the amendment, what I've been hearing through the staff and others is that everybody pretty much behaves themselves. But there is an impact on the city businesses, on the police department for sure, as far as just safety. They're making sure they do their jobs, and it was an unexpected assembly of people. And so in that respect, we are discussing the matter with the VFW on how to deal with that on several different fronts. So that may change as well. But
well, like I say,
that's the discussion so far.
That's just in the back of my mind, reservations, more so than anything else. And that's just the fact that, you know, just because everything's gone fine so far doesn't mean something couldn't happen, and hopefully nothing does, you know. I just want things to work out right for the city. I want them to work out right for the VFW. You know, we originally approved video gaming with the intent that some of our businesses that were hurting because of the economy, and the VFW being one of them, considering all the charitable things that they do, that we wanted them to prosper. And I'm just glad to see that this is helping them prosper also as far as revenues to do what they do. So that's all I got to say about it.
Alderman Schaefer?
Attorney McCarter, when you talked about what it starts at, the minimum level, can you repeat what you said? Because I just to clarify, when this rolls over and it starts a new one, it starts with 20% in there. If someone was to pull the Queen of Hearts on the next one right away, then it would be 20% of whatever is in there at that time. So it can go down low if it possibly.
No, in this case, if it's $3 million, it would be 20% of that plus the gross the gross proceeds of this draw.
Correct.
It's all applied, so it's
right.
So if they make 400,000, it's 400,000 plus 20%. I'm sorry. Go
Ben?
ahead.
Ben Keefe, Senior Vice Commander. It is, the next starting jackpot would be 20% plus whatever ticket sales for the week leading up to that day. Our ticket sales always carry over to the following week, so if there is a winner that week, those ticket sales go into the next game starting jackpots.
Well, my point was that it could, if someone was to win the next one early.
It will drop substantially.
Yeah, that was my point.
You guys don't know that, unless you know what card it is.
Haven't heard from Ben.
Alderman Glenn.
We're figuring on what, probably after your ticket sales, you're probably getting, unless it drops off significantly after a winner, you're looking at, what, first prize is close to $1 million, isn't it? You know, so it's amazing how much, you know, it's gonna start right back up. Won't take long for that $1 million to jump right back up again, so. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted to share my reservations before, and that was it.
Sure. Any other, Alderman Curry?
Yeah, Ben and I had some conversation this past week, but, yeah, and I share some of the concerns, but, and I think they're a little bit, they're dealing with something they didn't really, it's kind of an animal that they didn't really count on, I guess, in the beginning. It's kind of a, I guess, a good problem to have from the standpoint of finances, but it is a little difficult with the people, and yeah, this, I mean, the way it is right now, if it's, you know, if there's a winner, as I understood it, the next pot would start at about $1.4 million. Is that correct?
There's a winner this week, I think it's closer to $1.1 million.
1.1, okay. So, yeah, so I mean, I guess in one way the craziness continues, and even if there's a winner that very next week, you know, you're still, I mean, the VFW is guaranteed, you know, 20% of that, so you're still in lofty air compared to where you were a year ago. Even with 2 quick wins, you'd still be up there. So I get, you know, I share some of the concerns, and I don't know that we make it better when we double the amount. I mean, right now it's $3 million to the winner, which means the drawing is should hit $5 million. I mean, 60%. So, you know, what happens if it doesn't go? If you're at 400,000 a week now, and possibly it keeps increasing, I mean, we could easily, if this passes tonight, there's 13 cards left. So, you know, even at 500,000 a week average, I mean, you're looking at a lot, $6.5 million more. You hit this limit at the end if it goes to the last card. So you're at the $10 million drawing. So I'm concerned that it's gonna, potentially it could get beyond what you can handle. And I think it's at the, I guess I'm just talking out loud here, but it just seems like it's at a high enough number now. Now I understand from Ben, there's a problem on the other end. Obviously the other solution is if you don't get a winner in the next like 3 or 4 weeks, you're gonna have to do a drawdown, right? I mean, you're gonna have to draw for a winner. If this doesn't change.
Correct.
If this doesn't change, you would have to, that's probably the solution that you would have to invoke, right?
That is the solution we would have to, within the next 3 weeks, approximately, based on ticket sales, we'd have to do a drawdown.
And when do you think you'll hit the $5 million number?
About 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks at the current rate of acceleration.
3 to 4 weeks from today. Yeah. And I guess, I know nobody wants to wait till the last minute on things, but we have another council meeting between now and then, and I guess I'm just wondering if we shouldn't table it and bring it up at the August 20th meeting, and maybe there's a winner by then, and we don't need to do this, because if this goes to $10 million drawing, I don't think you've seen craziness yet. You know, I'm concerned.
So we're looking to max this out at $6 million. So we're presenting it to be maxed out at 6. However they play their game, that's up to them. We're gonna max it out to $6 million gross take home. That's it. So, and I think we've discussed it, and you know, Chief, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I would say that we've met with the VFW to discuss their game, just to see how it's going and make sure that we're providing them the services that they need for their game. I did sit down with Ben and I did go through the numbers. There's 13 cards left for this game, so they could pull all 13 cards. And it doesn't sound like their intention is to do that. It doesn't sound like their intention is to necessarily max out what the ordinance may or may not say in the future, but we wanted to set that up for the next game. When we looked at the next game, there's 54 cards in this game. So the probability of a 51% chance of better or pulling the right card, you have to pull the first 27 cards first. So if the next game only went 27 cards, you would be at $6,750,000 plus whatever the start of the pot was, which would already be 1.1 million. So you're really pushing that limit as it is right now. And then to further clarify, the whole point of us coming here tonight was to clarify what the payout was. Was it the 60% the payout on the cash limit, or was it the full pot of the money that they've collected? Because at that stands, they're already over. So we needed that clarification for them before that drawing tomorrow. And that's why we sat down with Attorney McCardle to clarify that language. That was the primary goal, was to clarify that language. And then to look at what advice could we give council to make kind of one last final decision, and this is where it's at, and this is from this future, this is what all raffles will work off of. We're not coming back to ask you for another raise on this ordinance.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Santi?
Ben Morse, when they got real high in their number, they did a drawdown, didn't they? Do you recall?
Twice.
They done that twice.
They got to their 1.5 million, did a drawdown, restarted at 750,000, got back up to the 1.5 million, I think in 4 months, and did a second drawdown.
Okay. Why did they do a drawdown since the ordinance was at 2.5?
I'm not sure. They
I called
have
the
done it
city on
both
that.
times.
The
They've
city
done it
had-
both times at like 1.5, 1.6 million.
They did it on their own, probably.
I don't understand their rationale, I just know that's what they did.
Correct.
They're a very tiny facility, very tiny.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, any questions for Ben?
Can I just interject something?
Sure.
You raising this limit, like the mayor had hinted, doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna take the game to that limit. If at any point we feel safety is gonna become an issue, or the safety of the volunteers, or just the workload on the volunteers, we will take the discretion to do a drawdown instead of causing a bad situation. I don't want to speculate, but our intention is not to be greedy and push this to the limit. We want this to be successful, and we want to come back and do it again and have that one be successful. We're not looking to turn and burn here. We want this to be something going forward that can raise funds for us to make not only improvements to our building, but also make improvements in the community and with veterans outside of our facilities.
Sandy?
You did mention earlier with that you plan on doing a drawdown potentially within the next 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. Are you going to make that announcement and have it official at some point?
If a lot of it depends on what happens right here tonight.
Well, okay.
If we're going to do that, we are obviously going to have to announce it ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not just going to surprise people. It'll be.
I mean, and even like a few weeks ahead of time in regards to, even if you win, in between the announcement and the potential drawdown date.
There will be multiple weeks of notice.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Condon?
I was just curious, Chief Burke, is there police presence there on Tuesday evening?
There has been, and we're actually, we met the other day too, we're gonna increase that as well.
Okay, and traffic control?
Yep, we've been out there handling that when it becomes an issue. The traffic gets thick there, and just 120, it's a combination. It's not just a Tuesday night because of the VFW having a raffle. It's road construction, it's bridge closures. Sure. It's the perfect storm of everything, but it's really not like, wow, traffic is horrible because of the VFW for 3 hours straight. It's not, we haven't seen that issue. That's not any of the feedback I've got from the officers that have gone out to help alleviate a little traffic direction. It's 15, 20 minutes at a time. primarily people getting into the lot, and not necessarily people getting out. The VFW's really stepped up the pace. They have their own people in the parking lot assisting people to park. They're encouraging people once they buy their tickets that, you know, that they don't have to stay and linger and they can't be in the building. They're doing everything that they can be doing to make sure that the inside of the building is safe. We do foot patrols, and starting next week, we're actually gonna post an officer there for the entire time, just for safety reasons. So.
All right, and good for you for managing it as well as you guys have. I have not gone in on Tuesdays, but it's probably been a month since I have driven by there on a Tuesday in the afternoon. I noticed backup both ways, so I can only imagine it's only gotten worse, so I just wanted to ask about that too. So thank you, and thank you.
Alderman Curry?
Yeah, so what I heard was your board, obviously, you've had some discussions about just drawing it down anyway if you have any concerns that get out of bounds. Okay, that's good to hear, because, you know, that's really what my concern would be. You know, most of the people think it's great, I mean, you know, and so forth, but we obviously, none of us want to encounter an issue. But,
the money means nothing if somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, right. So, all right, thank you.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I'll reiterate the fact that the times I've been down there, it's just kind of remarkable considering the amount of, well, gambling basically that you're talking about that people are doing, and their attitude out there is just like the friendliest, as if it was their neighbors that were sitting at the tables with them and everything else. I mean, it's phenomenal, and wouldn't have any concerns if it was always going to be that way. You knew it for, you know, guaranteed. But then the other question I have is, you know, video gaming and all that, we do get a cut of the take. We don't get anything on this, do we? We haven't figured out how you throw it.
We're discussing that.
We're discussing that.
Okay. That's all I got.
Alderman Schaefer?
Is the police effort overtime?
It's reimbursed by the VFW, but
Okay.
yeah, it will be starting on Tuesday. We've been looking at the crowd sizes, and we're at that point where we're gonna put somebody there for the entire event. Prior to that, we're doing random foot patrols. So officers will go spend 30 minutes out there actually walking the grounds, walking through the building, making sure that there's no issues during the ticket sales that are leading up until the 8 p.m. draw, and we haven't had any issues whatsoever yet. It's just the crowd size now that it's just appropriate for us to put somebody there. And the VFW's already offered to reimburse us for our time.
Excellent.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ben. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item, besides that you want to win it?
We already know you want to win.
Yeah. Please state your name, address for public.
Tom Zank, I'm just here as an outsider tonight, but I wanted to share with you that, you know, people self-select on this. For example, I mean, we've made it an event in our office, and a lot of people are having a lot of fun. And you know, we used to come down the bypass, past the Snuggery to 120 and make a right and try to make a left in the VFW. We learned right away, no, that's not the right way to go, so you gotta go up the Chapel Hill Road and come down to make an easy turn. And what Alderman Glapp said is right. I mean, you sit there, you visit with people from Chicago, from Waukegan, everybody's in good spirits. And by the way, we buy lunch every week in your city. And just want to let you know the other side of the story.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? This time, looking for a motion to approve item 6A as presented. Alderman Santi?
I will make that motion as presented.
Second?
By the city attorney.
By the city attorney, David McCarlo.
Because the proposed, what is an ordinance? Proposed ordinance is a little different than the one that was with the agenda.
Okay. By the changes.
Second, Alderman Condon?
Yes.
McCarlo.
Last discussion on this item. See none? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Ben, good luck. Go get some rest. The next item on the agenda is 6B. I'll go ahead and present this item as a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages, Section 6-1, increasing the number of Class A liquor licenses in effect from 32 to 33, and the issuance of a liquor license to Tacos El Norte located at 4318 West Elm Street. The owner is here this evening, so if you have any questions, but I'll open up for discussion by council. Alderman Glad?
Yeah, do they have a liquor license right now?
No.
No. And a Class A liquor license, then it's a porter license, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So they can have video gaming?
No. That was the first question I asked them. No video gaming, correct? No.
They state that.
Yeah, it's in there. But
Wow.
that was the first question I asked.
But once they have the license, they can, if they, down the future, they want
Right,
to.
but that's not their intention at all.
Okay. That's all I got.
Any other discussion by council? Anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item? I see none. I'm looking for a motion to approve 6B as presented. Alderman Schaefer?
Make that motion.
Second. Alderman Curry?
Second.
Discussion on this item. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 6C. Doug, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. This is a request for an assembly use for an educational institution at 1112 North Green Street for a STEAM type facility called Snapology. That's the River Place building. The applicant is here if you have any questions. And I will also answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion on this item? Questions, comments? See none. Open up to the public. Is there any public input or comment on this item? See none. At this time, looking for a motion to approve 6C as presented. Alderman Condon?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Santee?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item. Alderman Santee?
What's the maximum amount of people in that space? You know what that is?
I mean, it's a sprinklered building, so.
But in that section, was it 60, 80?
I haven't seen the floor plans yet. I'm not exactly sure what it would be. But it depends on a lot of things, layout of the seating, things like that. If you're standing room, you know, or if you're sitting, so that's determined once the building plans come in.
That's all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Condon?
Just a comment. I think our grade schools up through high schools have really been very advanced in the McHenry County area and bringing both STEM and STEM type activities, updating their libraries, and the technology that is coming forth is amazing. And so having a private facility as well, allowing our kids somewhere, a place to go that's creative and constructive, and I just think this is a win-win for the community.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Good luck to you. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is discussion item 7A. Doug, can you please present them and this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. Staff's been working for several months conceptually for the development of a brewery, winery, restaurant at the Miller Point site. This is a very high-level discussion that I want to introduce Jerry McCoy, Jeff Westcott, their team, ALA. You guys can come up if you want. What we're looking from the council is just very high-level conceptual comments, and if they should proceed, and staff should proceed with negotiating a redevelopment agreement with them for the redevelopment of Miller Point with this concept in mind, just kind of a consensus type straw poll vote from the council. I'll let them kind of explain their concept and introduce themselves. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Doug. So I'm Jerry McCoy, this is my partner Jeff Westcott. ALA, this is Dave Dolby, and this is Chris Russo. So they're our architect on this project. We brought a rendering. I think, Doug, you sent.
Yep, they all have it, yep.
Okay. And I want to thank all the staff for working with us and talking with us, and the mayor for being gracious enough to give us time. Obviously tonight we get to talk with the aldermen to kind of say from a high level who we are, what we do, and what we want to do here. So we have a few things going on in our business. We call it Lucky Girl Brands, and within our brands we have Lucky Girl bottled beer, Lucky Girl beer. We also have a B52, a private label wine company that we draw wine out of Paso Robles, California. And then in the last month, staff may not know this, the mayor may not know this, but we finalized the LOI. We should close on around September 1st with a spirits company, a bourbon, gin, rum, spirits group to help round out what we do from a brand perspective. So one of the reasons when Jeff started Lucky Girl Beer Brands, one of the things he thought of was, what do we do in order to maximize our brand? How do we get our brand out there, not just initially in Meyer stores and other stores, but how do we bring it local to the communities? This is one of those discussions tonight. So for us, we're really excited to come to McHenry, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, I moved to Spring Grove in 1991, so I've been in McHenry a long time. My brother-in-law, Doug Effling, toted the mail here in McHenry for 35 years, I believe. And my other brother-in-law, Steve Bjorkman, owned Bjorkman's Ace Hardware. So we love McHenry. We like being in McHenry County. This made a lot of sense to us to approach you all to say, would you even entertain us coming here to the village? And if you would, to the city, would you entertain something like this on that point? So great discussion so far with staff and with the mayor. And I want to, again, turn over to my partner, Jeff Westcott, for a few more comments. But that's why we're here, and we want to hear what you all have to say about maybe this proposal.
Thank you, council members. Jerry and I have been former business partners in the telecom world, and I come out of the financial industry. I started Lucky Girl Brewing Company in 2013. We distributed in 8 states. I brew beer in Pittston, Pennsylvania, and also Paw Paw, Michigan with microbrewery. Just to give you a flavor of where we're coming from, when I started in the business, there were 2,300 breweries. There are 6,000 breweries today. The distribution model doesn't work for small guys like us. We just don't have the resources, and as we've studied the equation out there, how we built Lucky Girl, and hopefully we'll be part of the community here. It's you look at the pre-prohibition model, there are 3,000 breweries and 100 million people. Today there are 6,000 breweries and 350 million people. People like beer, they like the experience of going to a neighborhood tap. You know, I can talk about demographics and where the industry is going, so on and so forth. So after having distributed, produced in Pittston, Pennsylvania, I opened up a brewery in Paw Paw, Michigan, which is a community that I've lived in for 20 years. In addition, I've been a Chicago resident for about 35 years. And it's been a great reception in the community. We are, you know, I kind of like to think of it as a destination place. We are opening up a winery on our property. We've got 6 acres in Michigan. We have a greenhouse that we're turning into a production winery, and we are putting in a wine tasting room there. So we're making a fairly significant economic commitment to a community of 3,000 people. We want to be a part of the community, whether that be on beer tours, part of the wine trail, or part of Distillery Trail. As our business model has expanded, so we've got 2 facilities there. We're licensing and rebranding a facility in Rochester Tap Room, so I'm sorry I don't have a suit on. I just came from working on that rebranding yesterday and today. We're partnering with Crown Development in Castle Rock, Colorado, and we've got a lease that we're signing at McCormick Place to build out the Lucky Girl brand. How this is germane to McHenry and what you folks are looking at, we really want to be local. We have licensing issues that we need to work through as to what is the appropriate licensing, whether it be a complete manufacturer, whether it be a microbrewery, which allows you a retail component to that, without getting into the weeds here on licensing. We're a winery. We have TTB licenses for winery, and our winery is called the B52 Winery. Our production right now is currently in Paso Robles. Our winemaker is an Australian. Unfortunately, he's going to be here next week, not this week. And so we're contemplating and looking at a business model here that would incorporate possibly brewing on site, wine blending on site. Unlikely we're going to be crushing and fermenting grapes here, and distilling on site. As Jerry mentioned, we're getting ready to close next month on a small distillery. To give you a flavor of where we're going, I'm putting in an ice rink on my 6 acres, and our 6 acres, I should say. There's no I in team. So we're putting in an ice rink in. You're not going to be able to serve booze on the ice rink or beer on the ice rink, but I want this place to be a community center. We have a farmer's market on our property. You know, we're fortunate we've got a nice, we've got enough ground to bring people in. I do that as a community service. We support 12 veterans organizations. We're a very big contributor to the Western Michigan Boys and Girls Clubs. So we're very much about community. You know, this is, you know, I've got gray hair. This is not my swan song. I do this because I like it. I think we've got terrific product that we're proud of on the both beer side and on the wine side. And you know, the design team, I think it's something that, you know, we could definitely be very proud of. You guys have a great location. And you know, what's going to drive traffic and build the community, you know, what's going to drive traffic to your, I mean, this is a two-sided equation. We're doing this because we want to build our brand. You're doing this because you want, there's something in it for the community. And you know, we've talked to all of these folks on this side of the table, and you know, we've got some great ideas of expanding the Riverwalk. You know, I want to put an ice rink. You know, you're going to have a pavilion in there for concerts. So yeah, I think it's a way of fully maximizing the property at hand to get the development going. And I think that, you know, we've got the right team, and you know, you know, we're not a large corporate anything here.
Nope.
But you know, we're very much community focused here. So.
And I did want to say too, he brought up public and private. So P3, I heard it early from one of the aldermen. So P3 is important, right? So we've got the Riverwalk there. We've got the city, and you got us. And I can tell you, in the discussions we've had, the city has been very, very nice to us in the initial discussions. They said the aldermen are very tough here in McHenry, so it's going to be a tough sell to get this thing done. I can't remember which person that was, but you know, from our perspective, trying to do something like Jeff laid out while we grow our brand and we build our name, Lucky Girl, we're just going to need a little help from the city. If you all choose to do business with us, we'll need a little help in our discussions on how we do this as a team, as a 3 component, right? 3 legs on the stool here. We'll need all 3 of it to make this happen. So once you guys visit with us tonight, I'm hoping that you'll be kind enough to say, go back and work with staff and kind of lay this out in an LOI and bring it back and see what that looks like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation. I'll open it up to council for any questions, comments. Alderman Condon?
Do you have anything proposed for kind of the point back in that area? I see the building is closer to, you know, in.
Yeah, we actually, asked them to show, your plan shows the Riverwalk as the Riverwalk Foundation has laid it out. And we have talked to them about that, but we have not nailed down exactly how that is going to get developed.
Okay,
So I think that's partially our doing as much as theirs.
okay.
I mean, we started from the premise that we've got a 100-year flood zone that we've got to be out of, and where you can position it, you know, how large a structure are we going to invest in? You know, it's the, you know, from what's going on in, you know, we're not looking to put a building down there and to crudely say, put some gates up and you can come in our place. We want this to be a community spot. I want to put in, you know, kayaks. I want to, you know, I want concerts down, you know, I don't want to say I want concerts down there, but you know, I want music down there.
Right,
Oh,
I want
yeah.
entertainment. You want a place where people want to go.
I'd
We were
like it.
just at Combs, TJ Combs?
DJ
Combs, and
DC Combs.
it's amazing how many people are out and about in downtown area, and you know.
And I gotta tell you, because of DCs, honestly, we know those folks through introductions, but I will say that because of the buzz from DCs in the village, and really bringing the street back to life, when we were talking initially, it was, you know, bringing Jeff out from Chicago out to Miller Point and saying, well, this used to be the Dobbins house and then it was this, you know, but now look how cool this thing can be, right? So he had to kind of visualize, here's an empty piece of land on the river that I think it was at that juncture, there's still no weight, it's no weight there. So there were no boats. And I'm like, no, this is gonna be really cool, man, and we'll put these paddle boats in, and we'll put this stuff in, it's gonna be really cool.
Very much a destination place. Ironically, our project in Castle Rock, Colorado, that's also called Miller Point. But it overlooks Pikes Peak.
So, and this design here that these guys came up with, incredibly beautiful design, I think, I would think any village would want something like this sitting on their property, the way they angled it on the property to make it fit, keep us out of the 100-year zone, flood zone. But not only that, as the boats come through or people walk up, it's really a beautiful thing. We did take the liberty of showing this to the Crown family that are out in Colorado. They own Aspen Mountain. We took the liberty of showing this to that group, and they want us to duplicate this there. So just know that we put a lot of time and effort in trying to bring something to you that would be great for the public here.
Well, I was gonna say, I really like the renderings, and we have those conceptual drawings as well. And I like all the outdoor space, and I'm thrilled with what you're presenting. As you mentioned earlier, we have some new businesses downtown, and that's been our goal with the Riverwalk and trying to attract some new businesses downtown. And I think this would be a wonderful addition. And so thank you for thinking of McHenry and looking forward to how things play out.
I was a little nervous when I heard some of the aldermen saying about the VFW and all the traffic that's coming in, all the money that's coming in, and then I thought about DC Cobbs, and then I thought, geez, man, if we put this here, are we gonna overload the city of McHenry? Is the chief gonna be like mad at us and stuff, you know? So hopefully we can work through that, and it won't be an issue.
We just take a fee.
You'd be highly successful if you're gonna bring 1,000 people into that place in one day.
I'm sorry?
You'd be very highly successful if you're bringing in 1,000 people a day.
Yes, sir, we will.
And that was our concern.
So you only gotta give away $6 million.
Well,
it's gonna cost
now that we're
half that to
talking
build.
money, you know, in the packet, they talked about, some joint ventures or whatever. What are we looking at as far as agreements right now?
All right, so I was gonna ask the comment on this anyway. So, you know, we bought the property back in whatever 2013, whatever the year was, for $550. Yeah, $550. And there was a variety of reasons that we bought the property, depending on who you talk to, but one of them was certainly to get the fence down and clean it up and at least make it presentable and whatever, for a period of time, but the goal was always to have redevelopment on that site, you know, from the beginning, and not to maintain it, at least at that time when we bought it, as a public space totally, or as a park site with no private development on it. You know, the elephant in the room is what is the give and take. I mean, they referenced it in terms of the P3 and working and the Riverwalk Foundation, the city and them. And I think all of those topics are on the table in terms of negotiations with them. You know, because going into it, we didn't, you know, the questions that we asked the staff were, well, how much of the site do you really want or need for your development? And if you decide to take the whole thing, then what's left, you know, how does it mean, how do we guarantee that there's some amount of public space there, given what we did in the spring with the McHenry Festival and with the Riverwalk? I mean, certainly we could carve easements out of it, you know, for the Riverwalk and all that. And their response to us, to give them full credit from the beginning, was, you know, we need enough space to make our project work and our vision work for the site, but let's work together on how much, on what level that's private ownership. What is it, the footprint of the building? Is it the whole site? You know, what is it? And what does the city want out of it also? And so I think, without getting into the specifics, because we really didn't, without knowing where the council wanted to go with it, you know, the topics of the negotiation in an LOI and a redevelopment agreement will be, this is what the private ownerships of the site will be, this is what the public is, here's what the public improvements will be that the developer will make at this cost, and this is what the city will provide at this cost. So that's where we get into the negotiation and coming back to council for input then from council. I think we did not want to get into that negotiation tonight, because that's the process, it's a negotiation process. We wanted the concept introduced, council to say, no, we hate that, go away, or we like it enough that staff should continue discussions with them and bring us back something that we can then respond to from a council standpoint.
Thank you, Derek. Alderman Curry?
Yeah, just, it looks like a great concept. I mean, it really, it's impressive there, and the photo there. A question on the plans for, you mentioned a restaurant here, and it shows it. What, can you talk a little bit about what type of restaurant you're talking, or what you're looking at there? You know you do.
You want to address it? Currently in Paw Paw, Michigan, just because of the size of the structure, the location, we run a barbecue program with pizza. We're going to be expanding that. We actually don't even run a kitchen with a hood, and that was my intent, because when I started this, I didn't have a general manager, and I didn't want to run a restaurant. The conversion that we're in process right now in Rochester Hills is about a $2 million revenue restaurant with 70 taps, and which will be called Lucky Girl Crossroads Rochester. They have a full array of whatever you want, from salmon to steaks to whatnot. I think, you know, we have a director of operations and a corporate chef that we brought on who've got 30 years experience each. They're going to kind of drive the train as to what is going in here. We are in the process of opening up another, I shouldn't say we, Lucky Girl is licensing the Lucky Girl Crossroads, named to Jerry McCoy and some partners. We're opening up in Richmond, entirely different location. It has a lot of similarities and attributes to kind of the demographics to what we do in Michigan and in Paw Paw, just because of the demographics. That will be entirely different from what we do here. I mean, this is going to be a full-fledged, you know, in the plans we have a 3,000 square foot function room or space on the second floor that we can do whatever with. You know, there's enough, you know, it's like everything else. What are you going to spend on the project, and how are you going to get a return on it?
So we want to do food that's really, really great, unique, not formal, and not stuffy. If that makes any sense.
It's not going to be a hamburger joint.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be a white linen place.
But it's not, in other words, that's what I was getting at. It's not just bar food, for example.
Correct.
It's a full restaurant that you're talking about, but maybe not, white tablecloth type.
Correct.
Yeah, that's.
You know, it'd be interesting, the wine program that we're starting, and again, just because the way we look at our business model and distribution is we're looking more at a Cooper's Hawk model with wine distribution through a wine club, and where you have to come into the location. I mean, these guys they've knocked the socks off of it. They've got good wine, we've got good wine, but it's, so you have something that complements that kind of a strategy with your brand of spirits and beers and so on. This production facility, because we're opening up a couple of other Illinois locations which won't have brewing capacity, will be servicing those other locations in Illinois. So in essence, I'm making certain styles of beer in Pennsylvania, we're making certain styles in Papua, Michigan, we'll be making certain styles here that we probably self-distribute through our own network.
So will there be a full kitchen?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Sorry.
How's it that?
You have a long answer, I'm not the.
Let's start out with the
quick answer.
elevation. All right, the rendition that you have, and I'm sure you're picturing something very similar to that. That faces the lagoon, I would assume. I mean, it's that elevation there would probably be the southeast elevation.
Correct. Looking at
over the northwest, which would be facing Riverside, look like compared to that.
So if the property was square this way, the building would actually be tilted.
At an angle.
Looking downriver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Downriver, so at an angle. Right. So we utilize the end of the building and the back of the building tilted this way. So it won't be square on the lot.
Right, which is kind of like what the old David's house was to some extent. And again, David's house, I don't even know how many people here would even know that where the name came from. It's actually a couple that actually owned the house as a residence at one time.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be sized proportionally, but with wine blending operations, you'll probably need 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. With brewing operations, I'm going to need 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, so you're 3,500 square feet already without incorporating a kitchen or the public spaces. So.
Are you familiar with the Ram breweries and restaurants?
No.
Ram?
Ram?
Yes.
Okay. So how would you compare yourself to them? And I'm not saying architecturally because they're in different areas, and this I think would fit more in that area than their design of their buildings. But as far as the way their operation works.
Yeah. Well, I'm familiar with them. I've been to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that I probably don't want to comment too much on that, other than say their business is a great business, and I'm sure it does well.
Mm-hmm.
Their design of their external facade is much different than ours. Internally, the tables and the chairs and the kitchen, all that they have internally.
Similar.
Does similar what we would do.
Okay, that's pretty much, I guess, what I was looking at more so than anything else. Like I said, as far as the building itself, design and everything else, I don't think that one would fit in that location anywhere near as well as something like this would. So I commend you guys on the architectural design, whichever one of you drew it up.
Thank you. That's our team.
Needless to say, though, my concerns would probably be more of what is the city looking to get out of this property? What kind of costs are we looking at to the city or giving up? And what about the parking? Because I think you got listed here, 108 parking spots, but you're counting the parking lot across the street.
Yeah,
and the parking on the street as well.
Yeah, Doug and Ross can participate in this too. So because of the zoning, as we've had this type of discussion before, there's no parking requirement where they're at because of how it's zoned. It's downtown. That being said, Again, part of the topics that we threw out as part of the discussion with them through the process, not only were improvements to the site regarding the Riverwalk and other things, but also the potential for improvements, an expanded parking lot. If you recall from the parking analysis that we did, I guess at the part of last year, you know, there's the potential for expanding the Riverside Drive parking lot, the one just directly west of where this facility would be, basically doubling the size of that. And I think on their site plan that they provided in the supplement, they work to maximize the amount of parking, you know, develop new parking or maximize the existing parking that's there. There's some concerns that we have as staff, you know, with the site layout in terms of parking and maybe some other things, but we didn't want to again get into that level of nitpicking, you know, as this first go around. One example is something I saw right away, and again, they wouldn't know because they haven't necessarily been here as part of the process, is they closed Venice off, and I know that that was
we were just commenting on that.
That was a major undertaking that this council had, was to open Venice up and create it the way it is with the one-way eastbound traffic to be able to get to the light and maintain that at least visual connection to Green Street and the parking areas at Court and all that. So that's an example right off that we conveyed to them, as staff conveyed to the developer, potential developer, as part of our last meeting. And there's others too, sidewalks and how the parking is connected and all that. But from a purely parking standpoint, they've looked to expand based on information we've given them on what's available, and also what is there, how to reconfigure some things to maximize. I can't speak for them, but from our conversations at least, they seem to understand the parking demand in the downtown, not only for them, but other events that go on in the downtown, and the need to make that interconnection at least, that people can park there and go to Green Street, or park there and go to Riverside Drive to visit other establishments. So that seems to be an understood need as part of this development.
As far as the parcel that's just kind of whited out over there next to the street parking off of the lagoon, that's city property, isn't it?
That's where the lift station is at.
Right.
Right, yeah, and so part of the site layout too, you know, early on it was, you know, putting a block, basically a block plan, putting a block on the site and saying, how does this look, you know, how about this location type of thing. And some of the things that we pointed out as staff to them right away was, you know, we don't want to block Venice. We have to be mindful of the lift station that exists there. We also have to be mindful of, there's a sanitary sewer line that runs through the site also. And, you know, it being a triangle, the more you get out to the corner, the point of Miller Point, the less visual opening you have of that site. So sure, you could put the building right out at the point, but then you're missing the potential for everything that's behind it. So, you know, I think in their planning, they took all of that into consideration, and that's why the building is relatively in the same spot as where Dobbins' house was, if you remember. You know, I know you do, but some people don't remember where that was at. It's about in the same location.
Interesting enough, that was the site where the first concepts of the Riverwalk were ever talked about.
That's
the downtown rejuvenation.
I can tell you that it was my oversight, not letting ALA know about the street coming through and going up on the design. So I was told that. Derek and team shared that with me, and I forgot to share that with them, so my apologies.
Any other questions? Alderman Connie?
Just one other conceptual point. I think one of the things that the city has been lacking for a long time is event spaces, and we've started to get a few more. So I love the concept of having that upper level being open. I'm assuming to rent, and certainly would have beautiful views, and the larger deck I think is awesome to have up there. But I think that's something that's truly needed in the community. So that's great. I'm glad you included that.
Thank you.
Any other input? Alderman Santi?
The piers out at the end, I don't, is that something to be discussed? I mean, those are public piers right now. Is that gonna stay public? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think those are something we'd carve out in the agreement, but I would envision that staying public just as the Riverwalk would be that public. We wanna provide some space. You know, you can see on the plan there is some reintroduction of the parallel boat slips that were present at the Miller Point, or excuse me, at the Dobbins House and at the Joey Teeth concept, and that those could be used for day slips to stop as well.
The benefit is that there's no limit on day slips that are being put in, so whether it's another public pier at some point in the future, like the Riverwalk plans show, kind of to the north of the pier that we have already put in, or whether there's slips, you know, somewhere else in there, there's no, really no limit except for space in terms of approval or anything else for those day slips.
Gotcha. Second question, when I look at the drawing and I see the parking would be way in the far west portion of this property, we're showing a diagram there that actually is adding that open space that's there right now that would actually become parking, correct? That's showing that as parking?
Yeah, we kind of asked them to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, it's going to be a lunch, dinner style restaurant. Are we looking at any type of breakfast or brunch kind of concept in something like this? You cringe, which maybe that's a good thing.
We've had great discussions amongst ourselves about whether or not breakfast should.
Knowing that right down, I'm just saying, right down the corner is a very, you know, prominent pancake house, and when we're looking at all these spaces here, they do go all the way to the Riverwalk at some points in the morning, just so it's out there, and especially on the Saturday, Sunday mornings.
So we've had that discussion, and our initial answer is no.
Okay.
On breakfast.
I would say weekend brunch, yes.
Yep, I can understand. It's gonna be, Sundays are that way. You mentioned the second floor in your discussion, 3,000 square feet upstairs.
Chris, you know the square footage?
It's big.
It's fairly big. You can, just using some basic square footage, you can accommodate a fair number of people.
It's like a community.
35 to 71.
So in other words, potential banquet hall.
Banquet hall, yeah.
Could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we're trying to, again, back to the public piece of it, right? If we all do this properly, the three groups, and we keep the public in mind as we do all of it.
Sure.
I think putting that space up there for us will help the public find places to come to, which would benefit us as well, of course. But it certainly benefits the village or the city, and that's why we asked to include it. It was Jeff's idea, actually, to include it, and having that extra space or that extra meeting space, we seem to think is really important.
I mean, and the issue for us was looking at the site as, I mean, obviously it's a great seasonal site just because of the boat traffic and there's slips there. But what do we do to make this a year-round place? And, you know, one of the obvious things is if there's a need for an event space, you know, we can incorporate it into the project. I mean, it certainly helps the economics of our business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. One final question I had, and it's probably for a later discussion with yourself and staff, but manufacturing license in regards to like actually brewing, I mean, is that a different type of license that what we offer right now in regards to alcohol? Because it's physically would be brewing right there.
Well, we do, in terms of liquor license, we don't have a craft beer license or a winery license. We just have beer and wine, and then this is zoned downtown commercial, so if it was manufacturing and they didn't have customers, that would be more of a manufacturing zoning. But if it's more of a kind of a customer restaurant, it fits more of a downtown kind of zoning. So
without don't take this for 100% gospel, but the state liquor laws, if you're required to get a TTB, federal manufacturing license, and the state would grant us that license to manufacture there with the consent of the community, that they have no objections to it. And with the manufacturing license, because of your size and scale, being a microbrewery, you're allowed to open a tap room there. And frequently, I know this to be true in Michigan, the tap room requires that you serve food there of some sort. So that's why you see food trucks at a lot of these brewery tasting rooms. They're required to. So we could go straight manufacturer, as well as a winemaker. We would then be restricted by only serving our products there. So if there's another craft brewery in town, we couldn't serve their products there. If we got a microbrewery license, which is a retail license, we're allowed by both TTB as well as the state to manufacture and sell our own product there, as well as selling other retail products, other craft beer manufacturers or other winemakers. So, you know, and that's why we haven't made this decision of what kind of licensing we would be looking for. Likely we would be looking for a microbrewery license and a small winemaker license. You guys have got to get a microbrewery license because it's a retail liquor license.
Alderman Schaefer?
I think we're getting into a lot of the nitpicky stuff, but I mean, from my opinion, if you're looking for general agreement for staff and yourself to move forward with a development plan or redevelopment plan, so to speak, I think it's a great idea to move forward with and get those details back to us.
Thank you. Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Bob?
Yeah. All right. Ask staff, what would the normal requirements be as far as parking for a hall with that type of square footage?
For this, for the banquet use, it would be 0.25 per square foot, per person design capacity.
Which would be what?
Ballpark figure. How many, what's per person design capacity for the assembled use?
Again, it depends on fixed seating, I mean, you're looking at, 3,500 square feet. I don't know the number offhand, I'd be lying to you. I have to look at the book, I mean, you're talking.
We'd have to break all the uses down,
Right.
because they have multiple uses in this
I
building.
understand that.
To give you a more accurate answer.
But I think parking is, you know, I'm not the only one that brought up parking, and I think that could become one of the issues out there, and I just think that before they were even ready to come forward, that the city would have some kind of an idea of different options that we could go with as far as parking out there, because, hey, we wanna bring people in. We wanna make the downtown area so vibrant and everything else. We just have to make sure that we've got the parking and the facilities that, public facilities that are needed to support the people that come into the city as well as the businesses that wanna come into the city. So I think we really need to look at that with different options of what we can do too.
Okay. Everyone else is good? Move forward?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Look forward to meeting with you again. Is there any staff reports this evening?
This Sunday, we'll have the Spirit of 45. It's always an amazing event that recognizes the World War II veterans, and that'll be, again, Veterans Memorial Park this Sunday, 5 p.m. There'll be a small concert there that happens in conjunction with that recognition. And then before we meet again, we'll also have the Blues, Brews, and Barbecue event. So that'll be at Peterson Park, put on by the Rotary Club, 17th, 18th, and 19th. I think those are this any. Aside from our standard city band concerts, this week will be New Odyssey Thursday, and next week will be a larger one, Bella Cane, kind of put on in conjunction with our McHenry Farmers Market.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? See none. Mayor and City Council comments. I'd just like to say you approved tonight an event that'll be held at Peterson Park on September 29th. Jason and Amy, I've known for a very long time, that are putting this event together, a day of hope for heroin is killing my town. I know maybe the public doesn't know I'm very supportive of doing what I can to help. So thank you two very much for putting this on. I'm in full support of it. and I'll get as many people as I can to support it as well. So thank you very much for.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody.
As far as any other comments, I have none. Alderman Condon?
You stole my thunder. I was gonna also acknowledge Jason and Amy. I've known them for quite a while, not as long as the mayor, but have worked with them in another organization fighting addiction. And I know it's not a topic that we want to talk about, but there is heroin in our community, and it's something that we need to address, and I applaud them for bringing this to our community and bringing awareness to it, and just another opportunity to help people that are struggling, because so often it's, oh, those people, but it's a disease. It is a disease, and we need to treat it just like we do any medical disease, and give it its due, and fight the battle. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other city council comments? See none? At this time, we're gonna enter executive session. Once we make that vote to go into executive session, I'd ask that all of you please leave the chambers, and we'll open back up after executive session.
This is for real estate acquisition and potential litigation.
Thank you very much. At this time, making a motion.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, I will. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session. Alderman Curry. So moved. Second. Alderman Santee. Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Mehevik.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman Mayor.
Yes.
Hey, Wayne. Are you taking any action coming out of?
I am not. We are not. You can go ahead and wrap it up.
68.